Hello, everybody out there in YouTube. We are the Middle-Aged Guys, and in this particular video, we're going to be bullshitting about the announced unveiling Microsoft, the specs for the Microsoft or the Xbox Scorpio, as it's called it. Yeah, that happened just 2 days ago on the 6th. I am the Reverend.
The Beam here.
And Gray Mouse 1.
Now, this was a pretty... it's pretty interesting how Microsoft decided to go ahead and unveil the specifications for the Xbox One Project Scorpio. Instead of doing a press conference or some, stage presence or presentation that they would be holding, that they would have complete control over and everything else, what they did is that they went out of their way and they invited the guys from Digital Foundry, which, by the way, if you don't know about them, they're probably one of the better or tech reviewers out there when it comes to video games and video game related hardware and everything else. I'm actually really surprised that they don't have more subscribers than they do. I think right now that they've got a less than 400,000 subscribers, but really these guys should have 1 million subscribers. They do a lot of really good work. They're really knowledgeable, and they present everything in a way that's very easy to understand, especially if you're not somebody who's a complete tech head. Which is the reason why it's interesting that Microsoft went ahead and invited them over to look at the Xbox Scorpio hardware and to go ahead and tear through the specifications and everything else like that. Because, Digital Foundry is also known to be one of the more unbiased and fair ones, and if there are issues that they find with things technically, they usually bring that out to the forefront right then and there. So Microsoft left it up to them to go ahead and do the unveiling of the specs, talk about it, go ahead and give their impressions and all of that, and they didn't clamp them down with, okay, you can't talk about this, you can't, say this about it or whatnot. They've pretty much been the ones on the forefront right there. They did a lot of predictions about what they thought the hardware would end up being. Many of the predictions ended up becoming true. And then they went ahead and they covered the specifications in earnest. Yeah, it's going to be the most powerful video game hardware console out right now. Gray Mouse and I had talked about this a little bit earlier, in length. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to put our thoughts out, hopefully in a coherent fashion. And then that'll start a dialogue where we can see what you out there in YouTube think about it. All right, I'm going to open up the floor right now, guys. What are your thoughts on the hardware specs that were released out for the Project Scorpio?
I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Listen, for all of you out there that may give a fuck about specs, may give a fuck about power, personally, I do not. Behind me is an Atari 2600 that still works and I play to this day. What's the specs on that fucker? Not even a spec of what the Scorpio is going to be. My biggest point, it's all about the games that are going to be on it. If the games do not live up to the expectations, then the system doesn't fucking matter. It's just a paperweight. I have a Panasonic 3DO behind me. You guys can't see it, but it's there. That was powerful for its time. The Atari Jaguar was powerful for its time. My basic point is, again, I don't play video game systems, I play video games. I've already said before, the Scorpio is going to be dead in the water in Japan. They don't give a fuck about how powerful it is. They're going to give a fuck about what the game's going to be on it. Now, if it's all about power for you, or if it's all about the specifications for you, that's fine. But for me, personally, it's going to be about the games that are going to be on it. And that's really all I have to say at this point.
Can I force you to give an opinion on the specs of the machine that was put out?
Again, I just can't, because none of that is going to matter until games, because specs are always announced for stuff. Things are always supposed to be listed as powerful or things that is supposed to handle. And by the time the system comes out, none of that matters anymore. The only thing that's going to matter are the games for it. And that's pretty much where I stand. Not downing it, but that's the truth of the matter.
Okay. What about you, Gray Mouse? What are your thoughts?
I'm pretty much in the same boat with Theme. You know, games is the most important thing about it. But I'm one of those types that actually like to talk about the specs on the system. And as far as I can see, you know, it's a beast. But what I want to actually make sure that I put out there is that even though you got all that power, it really determines on what games will be put on it and how the existing games for the Xbox One, like Phil Spencer was saying, for the family, how they're going to work on the Xbox Scorpio. Again, you know, I just hope that a lot of people don't think that games that work on the Xbox One at 30 frames per second is going to get any boost in frames or anything with just because you're playing it on the Xbox Scorpio. Because it's up, you know, it's left up to the developers to actually frame lock that particular game where they feel that game performs its best. That's not to say that the developers can run code through Xbox Live and actually patch it to where you can actually get 60 frames per second for the system. What I find interesting about this is that maybe this is going to be where Xbox is actually going to open up 4K gaming for the console, because as far as Digitally Foundry was concerned, they said that it can handle 4K at 60 frames per second. It has that much power to do that. And it's really up to the developers of those games to push that hardware to those levels. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm hoping that this will encourage developers to create, you know, better games, or rather smoother games for the system, and let's push the system to its max, and hopefully, you know, we'll get some good games out of it. Like you said previously, because you mentioned that we talked previously, kind of off camera. With that much horsepower behind it, you're allowed to render more graphics onto the screen, so that allows the developer to do more things. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is that I was really excited that Microsoft actually revealed the specs at this particular point in time, instead of wasting all that time talking about the Xbox Scorpio at E3. What I got from Twitch, and these are not Twitch, Twitter, that Phil Spencer is really pushing that Xbox is really going to be game-centric this whole E3, to a point to where it's going to be game. Oh, here, by the way, here's more games. So I found it kind of interesting that they're revealing it now, and then that way they don't have to do it later. But, you know, that's what's going to make or break the system are the games. But see, what I find interesting is that Microsoft's got to figure out a way to get those people that don't own Xboxes or this generation of Xbox to bite for this the Xbox Scorpio. Of course, I feel that when Scorpio is released, that they will actually have a large amount of people buy them, but I think it's going to dry up pretty quickly, because what is happening is the people that actually waited for the Scorpio to be released that didn't buy the Xbox S, they're the ones who's going to be the first adapters to the Scorpio. But so Microsoft is going to have to do a killer app or something to actually get the rest of the people to buy into their into Xbox or Microsoft brand. I mean, I think games are a major component of that, of them being able to do that.
I think in my perspective is a little bit different than your guys' perspective, especially considering what I do for a living, that I work for a developer, and that I do take into consideration very wholeheartedly what the hardware means to actual games. Now, not to sit there and jump wholeheartedly into, so what I'm going to play on it, because guess what, I'm going to get there eventually. Hopefully I can talk for a few more minutes without getting there sooner, but like I said, I'm probably going to get there eventually. The way that they have this set up, they've obviously went out of their way, and they spent a lot of money R&Ding this thing, and they put it together with components that are going to be able to meet their claims, 4K at 60 frames per second. But as Grey Mouse went ahead and pointed out, that's going to have to be something that they're going to have to ask developers to go out of their way and develop as a dedicated mode for the Xbox Project Scorpio. All right, because base SKU is still the PS4 for a majority of the multi-plat games that are out there, and because of that, if you've got a multi-plat game that's being released out that's locked at 30 frames, in order to ask them to go ahead and do like a 4K 60 frames per second version of it, you're gonna have to do something that's very similar to what they did with either a pro mode patch or something that's dedicated to go ahead and ride the hardware out for that. And believe me, I would love to be able to see games that actually take advantage of this stuff. Okay, the thing that we have to keep in mind, even with as many teraflops of computational power that fanboys like to go ahead and eat up online and devour and then bandy about like it's their own penis. The thing about that is that, like we've all said, how is this going to go ahead and influence games? All right, how is this going to influence games? Our biggest concern that we put up, especially like over the last few videos where we all actually got together and talked about this, is that, okay, Microsoft is in a position right now where pretty much they're being outsold in sheer numbers of consoles, pretty much two to one. Okay, when it comes to the difference between Xbox One sold and PS4 sold. All right, the snide remark that's right behind that is that it's not a console war, it's console bullying right now. Okay, but just to go ahead and recognize the mindset of some of the folks that are Microsoft faithful and stuff like that. I was on one of the forums that I frequent, and we're discussing this back and forth, and I was just asking questions. So what do people expect this to go ahead and cost? Is this going to help Microsoft close the gap between themselves and Sony? how much of this how much performance can I realistically get out of the Scorpio? Is this going to be enough to convince me to get that on top of the fact that I already have a PC rig that's rather capable, and then I could play games, well enough on there as is, because the truth of the matter is that we don't have to worry about Microsoft capturing more money from the Xbox faithful. There's going to be a large number of the Xbox faithful going out of their way to go ahead and upgrade. All right, that's going to happen. I can already assume that. Okay, but one of the responses I got back to one of my questions was, somebody actually said that this console is quite obviously not meant to close any sales gaps. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you really fucking kidding me? Are you that fucking stupid? All right. Look, you're telling me that they're going to go out of their way. They're going to spend hundreds of millions of fucking dollars on R&D and putting together customized fucking hardware. Okay. And they're just going to go out for a niche set, a subset of the fucking consumers that they already have, and they're not going to look for any more. Are you fucking kidding me? Really? You're gonna sit there and you're gonna mass produce a fucking product, and you're not gonna go ahead and put it out, hoping that it's not gonna sell as many fucking units as possible. All right, is this the fucking mindset that you fanboys are going ahead and you're swallowing these numbers? All right, without benefit of lube down your fucking throats. Okay, is this your fucking mindset? All right. Look, I think the one thing that we can all go ahead and agree on here, whether or not it's, aside from any rant or how we feel that people's, general conception of how it goes, look, it's a beast of a machine. It's a monster of hardware. But they only revealed out the specs. They haven't told us the price. They don't tell us what it looks like. All right. Shit. There's not even a guarantee right now that all of the accessories that are out for the Xbox One right now will even work with the fucking thing. Okay? You don't think that's happened before with consoles? It's happened before with consoles.
Don't have the Scorpio be a fucking peripheral or some garbage like that.
That's just one of the things that there's still a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to the Scorpio. What's really going to convince anybody in this particular video, Grandmouse owns himself an Xbox One. All right. I don't picture him going out of his way to buy a Scorpio, especially if it costs something like $600, $700, to replace his Xbox One that he has right now. If all the games that he may even give a shit about, he already has access to through Windows 10 to play on his PC that he just put together a little while ago. All right, and yes, he's one of those guys who spent $2,000 on a custom PC. All right.
Yeah.
Well, he can turn in his Xbox One and get store credit, and then get the Scorpio from the same.
What? Let me just mention something real quick. One thing too is I'm thinking that maybe Microsoft is banking on VR and AR.
VR.
Whether or not the specs in the Scorpio can handle VR the way it's supposed to be handled at 4K or whatever it may be, 1080 for both eyes or whatever, remains to be seen. But as far as I've seen the hardware that's in the Scorpio, I think it would work. And I think it would probably, maybe that's another section that Microsoft is trying to aim for, are those people that are interested in 4K gaming, that are interested in VR, virtual reality, and augmented reality, preferable. But
what VR?
I'm not even going that far. You know what I'm thinking? When it comes to VR, the problem with the VR right now is that when it came to the type of VR platforms that Microsoft was going out of their way and entertaining to make inroads in with the Xbox One, they mentioned the Oculus Rift, all right, which clocks in at like $500, right? But Oculus just got sued by ZeniMax, and they, whether or not there's an injunction that goes through that blocks, hardware sales, future hardware sales for the Oculus going forward, that may not be an avenue available to them. So what else is available to them? It's not going to be the PSVR at $400. It's going to be the fucking the HTC Vive at $800. Okay.
I'm just throwing it out there, though? I'm just saying that.
I understand that, but
that Microsoft is directly.
I understand what you're saying. As far as an option, as far as something to think, something for things to people to think about. But when you introduce the cost of a brand new console and then introduce an $800 cost before you even get any software, just to be able to jump into a VR platform using the Vive, the price of entry is just astronomical all of a sudden.
No, you're right. And let me jump a little bit. I think another thing too is that you'd be really stupid not to recognize this, and Sony's going to do it too with their Sony PlayStation Pro. Eventually, they're going to have games on that system that would only run on that particular system. Now, I don't think it would be wise for Microsoft to do that until like maybe 2 years after the release of the Scorpio, but I do see that happening, and I do see Sony pulling that same bullshit. I just do, and that's in the cards. Believe whether you like it or not, that's going to happen.
It wouldn't be wise for any of them to do that. All they would have to do. All they would have to do.
Talking about that, man. They're going to do it. They're going to have exclusives for those consoles.
All they would have to do is look at the 3DS and the new 3DS and see how that's going. There are only games that will only work on the new 3DS.
Yeah.
And look how that's going.
Well, here's the thing.
Not do that for a main console.
Here's the thing with that, though, is that the new 3DS doesn't cost any more than a regular 3DS.
But that's my point, and people are still not doing it. So
there are obviously enough for the fact that the 3DS is like over 70 million fucking consoles, units sold worldwide. Obviously, there's enough of that going on.
Yeah, but look at the PS4 compared to how many people have the PS4 Pro and the PS4 VR that goes along with it.
I'm just saying.
Most of the games for the PSVR that require the VR are not really worth getting the VR for, and the VR clocks in at $400.
I'm just saying, it's a sad truth of reality that.
So let's think about the Scorpio plus the cost of a fucking VR goggles or whatever is going to come to it. If the games are not,
we don't even have to get that far. No, we don't even have to get that far.
But my point is, either way, it's going to come down to the games.
Yeah, I mean,
either way.
And I think that's, like I said, on the risk of sound like broken records, unless we have a reason to actually go out of our way to buy the console or whatever platform you're offering us,
I think what Greymouse spent on his PC will actually be less than the Scorpio, the VR shit that came with it, and a fucking Kinect that you're gonna have to attach to it in order to do this shit with the VR.
But I think, in the end, it all comes down to games. Like everybody said
at the beginning.
Because, regardless of where we're at, I think if, like I said, going with the rhetoric that the console is quite obviously not meant to close any sales gap, it's meant for a niche group of gamers like the PS4 Pro that didn't mind pay extra for better equipment. Look, that didn't even fucking matter either. Okay, look, what the thing about that though is that the PS4 Pro has just this year alone, like 24 fucking games that are going to come out on it that you can't play on any other fucking platform. All right, that's that's just the truth of the matter, you know. With the Xbox One right now, like I said, they've already got their Xbox faithful. For the Scorpio, I think they've got a big portion of their faithful, the previous Xbox One owners, in the bag for the upgrade. All right, but if they want to go ahead and convince somebody who doesn't have an Xbox One, or somebody who might be a lapsed gamer, okay, they don't have a brand new console right now. Okay, maybe they left the console, market, and they had to handle real life for like the past few years or whatnot, and they're thinking about getting back into things. One of the things that's going to help that person go ahead and convince them to get a Pro or a One for that matter over anything else is, well, what are the gaming experiences that I can get on that particular platform that I can't get anywhere else?
It will be pretty insane if the PS4, if the PSVR has more exclusives on the fucking VR than the Xbox One or the Scorpio itself. Come on, I am being very fucking serious. Regardless of how the games are on the VR, if the VR has more exclusives than an actual fucking console, that would make no sense to me.
Yeah, I just wonder how many VR games they have out right now.
Well, compatible with VR, there's a lot of them. Well, not a lot, but there are certain games that you need VR. You need the PlayStation camera, and you need those dildos.
Yeah, I really wonder how many games there are.
The interesting thing about that is that most of those VR games are multi-plat games. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but if they don't have a VR mode, that still gives you a reason to get that particular version over something else.
Resident Evil 7 is an example.
Yeah, if that's something that you're into.
Resident Evil 7 has the option of using VR. It's not required, but it's an option. There are a couple of games for the PlayStation VR that the VR is absolutely required. You can't play it without it, or you will not play it without it.
What games?
Well, I don't know any of the top of my head, but there are a couple of them that you need the VR, or else you're just not going to play it. It even says on the fucking box of the game, it says you'll need these. Res Infinite is optional. You can play it with or without the VR. And the VR will just change the experience of the game. And that's up to you.
Well, without going too far from what we were, our initial topic.
The Scorpio.
The Scorpio. Right now, like the Reverend said earlier, we don't know what it looks like. We don't know the cost. We don't know what games
it's an actual system or peripheral.
It's an actual system. All right, let him finish his thought. Let him finish his thought. Go ahead, Grey Mouse.
What happened?
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah. I it's gone. You got it.
I apologize. I said that the VR, the Scorpio is going to be their VR.
Yeah. With this particular one, folks, I think where we're at is that specs are great, okay? And the thing is that here's the one thing that all of us can agree on, all right? It is the most powerful gaming, for as far as gaming consoles, it has the most powerful hardware out there. The numbers are there to prove it. Guess what? And we're not arguing against the numbers, okay? At the end of the day, though, is that even with all those numbers and all the floppy things that, fanboys like to throw around online like they're fucking dicks, okay? The one thing that we're concerned about is what what's in it for us that's going to make it, you know, your gaming experience so fucking special to us, all right, and so unique, okay?
I remember what I was thinking about. I'm sorry. Real quick, the thing that the Scorpio has going for it is that it already has a huge library already before it even comes out. Most of those games are going to be able to run. Most of the Xbox One games, whether you were an early adopter or the Xbox S, they're still going to be able to run on the Scorpio. Maybe even at a better performance.
Will it make the new Mass Effect better?
Man. Anyway, so it already has a library of games that will, you know, and I think it's going to be backwards compatible as well with the Xbox 360 games as well, because I mean, Phil Spencer went out there and tweeted I'm completely out of his way, you know, with tweets that he did saying that the games will still work on the Scorpio, and that he's really proud of his team on figuring out how to get those games to work on that particular hardware. So, I mean, if that's your thing that you like to do, you know, like you like to play your Xbox 360 games on your new hardware, I mean, by all means, there's really, you know, if you already own it, you might as well just upgrade it to the Scorpio. I know several people that did not get a Xbox S because they were waiting for the Scorpio, and it's just the way things are, the way people, you know, the way people think, and the fact that, you know, that Phil Spencer, you know, guaranteed that those games will work on the Scorpio. I mean, that was a lot of hard work put into that. You got to at least acknowledge that. But I don't think that the Scorpio is actually going to have a killer app per se, because like Phil Spencer was saying earlier, they don't want to separate or disenfranchise the fans that they already have. That why do I need, you know, why are you gonna make me upgrade to this if I want to play this particular game? At least not yet. You know, it's going to eventually happen, and Sony, it's going to eventually happen, if not already happened. So I would, you know, I would really like to see Microsoft succeed with this. I hope they get a great launch, and I hope to see a whole bunch of games, you know, coming up on E3. I really do. Whether or not they put the game on the, you know, on the Scorpio or the Xbox One vanilla, I guess I could say now. I guess it's an appropriate word. But the thing that everybody's talking about right now is it going to close the gap between Sony and Microsoft in sense of sales? I'm sorry, I'm going to say absolutely not. Sony has got such a foothold in this generation. It's really impossible for Microsoft to come out of this ahead, whether or not, unless they have games that, you know, that can be played only on the Xbox One. We don't know. You know, maybe they have some killer apps, you know, that will actually help boost the sales. Because quite frankly, I think the fact that Sony is such ahead right now, I think they're getting complacent in their way of doing things, and that's not the way to be. You should be thinking ahead of your opponent. You know, stay ahead.
Actually, in their gaming division, they're not being complacent at all.
A lot of their stuff is just remakes. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but at least that gets traction.
True, but you know,
but within the last gaming conferences, you've seen things that are only going to be in their console that people are actually interested in. If they get scalebound at this year's E3, they're going to fuck Microsoft up.
Yeah, and you know, really at that point, that's a bigger conversation for than the time that we have right now. Yeah, I like I said, the numbers don't lie. It's a very capable console, but it's I think the best analogy that I could use before we close up is that it's like a very talented athlete. All right, when you have somebody who's very physically gifted and they have a lot of physical tools. However, if they don't have the skills or a specialized training or application of those talents, then at the end of the day, it may just end up being a waste of talent. I don't want to sit there and say at the end of the day that the Scorpio is going to be a waste of hardware, a waste of your money. Good God, I hope not. But right now, without games to go ahead and gauge what its future is going to look like in comparison to the landscape that's already there for the Xbox One in general, it's kind of hard for me personally to get excited about it. Okay, but really what we want to know is, what are your thoughts on it? What did you think about the reveal? What do you think about the specs? What do you think about the fact that there aren't that many games out there for the Xbox to go ahead and show off what exactly the Scorpio is going to be able to do for you as a gamer? We would like to know that, so leave us a comment below. While you're at it, hit that like button, hit subscribe. We really appreciate that. That goes off and helps us a lot. It's kind of the reason why we do this, see if somebody's actually listening. All right. We are the Middle-Aged Guys, and we've been bullshitting for the last 40 minutes almost about the Xbox Scorpio specs reveal that happened just on the 6th, 2 days ago, and all of our bullshit about that particular one, and hopefully we're not going to trip on anything else. It's going to lead us into another 40-minute tirade. It's going to end right here. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
Very last one.
Once again, for the benefits of common sense, logic, and gaming. Come on, Microsoft. Games, please. That will make your Scorpio succeed and even play catch up to the PlayStation 4. Don't let the Switch catch up to you at this point. Credits.
Microsoft's not going to catch up with Sony. Sorry.